So we've talked about defensible space and the fire-hardened house set in that defensible space. The third aspect that I've thought about for a long time is a dynamic response system. That is, pump and stored water. After the lightning siege of 2008, when 2,000 fires were simultaneously ignited between Monterey and the Oregon border, my dad and I talked about pumps, and we both ended up getting Honda pumps that can pump 100 gallons a minute. And I'd be very happy for anybody to come up and take a look at it. In fact, Carol's come up and played around with the hose and the nozzle, felt the weight of, do you know how much a hose weighs? It's 260 pounds of water. It's a lot to heft around the hilltop. So, so we got this pumping system, and we have it set up. Well, our parents, Mary's and my parents, hand-built a concrete block cistern in 1960. It's 8 feet high, 22 feet in diameter, and it holds 22,000 gallons of full. Wow. It's had a long history of leaking, and we're slowly working to finish those leaks. So right now we have it filled to 10,000 gallons, because if you have it much higher, the hydrostatic pressure pushes out the water. But 10,000 gallons is still a lot of water. To give an example, on October 27th, 2019, we had a fire at Rainbow Drive down in the States near Hardisters. And Michael called me, well, I got his pager alert at 4:25 in the morning. He called me at 4:30 and he said, we have a fire at Rainbow. I'm being dispatched. You need to get the pump started. So I started our pump, and we'd actually already laid it out, because this was during the Kincaid fire. And there was that gigantic fire roaring between here and Sonoma, periodically appearing to threaten us. So we had everything laid out. So all I had to do was go out and start it up. And Michael had taught me that using this nozzle, if you want a straight shot, if you want a straight spray, a jet of water, you turn it right to fight. If flame's coming at you and you need a broad spray, you turn it left to live. So right to fight, left to live. And so I hooked it up, and I turned on the pump, full blast, and the first thing I did was shoot up onto the roof until I saw the water coming out the gutters. So I knew it had gone through the gutters and into the downspouts. And then I turned it a wider spray to spray the tops and the bottoms of the redwood decks to completely soak them and anything under them. And then I had noticed when I came out on the deck of our rebuilt home that I smelt roofing tar burning, and I could see the flames from Pine Grove. So I knew it was like looking down a rifle barrel. I knew that in 20 minutes, if it got up into the trees, within 20 minutes it could be there. So I stood facing the fire, and I scribed a 180-foot arc, and I just started spraying everything in that arc. And at one point, and it was very cold, I had on my mountaineering parka and a few other, and some fleece and so forth. At one point, I started laughing like a maniac at myself, because I forgot that you don't want it left to live when you go through a 40-mile-an-hour wind. And I got this gigantic cold shower all over me. I was completely soaked. I was standing there laughing with the fire in the distance, and I thought, what would they think of me? So anyway, at 5:15 in the morning, the pager on my belt went off, said cancel incoming resources, fire is contained, which was very welcome news. So, and then Michael called me and said, you can save the water. So I ran back and shut off the pump. And then I went up to the cistern, and we had this dipstick where we measure it, and we'd lost 5 inches out of 48 inches. I'd gone through 1,150 gallons in 45 minutes, and I thought, wow, I'm good for 6 more fires. So that's why I don't even need to pump it up to 22,000 gallons. Yeah. The reason I keep it way up is that CAL FIRE, who visited our place, said they like to know if there are depots of water that they can use. So if they came up to our place to save it, to work on it, and they basically got everything under control, they have access to 9 or 10,000 gallons left of water, which is a really good thing to store. And you don't need, I mean, I don't know what kind of storage you have here.
It's
Roberta.
just that little
This one?
black thing over there.
Right there.
The one over here? Or is it somebody else?
Yes, no, there's 4 homes on this well.
Okay. Our domestic supply is 1,500. We got it at Ukiah. It's a green tank. It's a 1,500 gallon tank. And considering that I went through 1,150 gallons and wet the entire hillside, I would have had 400 gallons left in our domestic supply. So I would suggest a 3,000 gallon tank, not a 1,500. But you don't need a 22,000 gallon tank. If I lived in if I lived in a place like this, I'd get a 3,000 gallon tank. Let's see what else I did. Yeah, so we get our hoses. We get our wildland hoses. Well, I got some from a friend in Berkeley who's a retiring Berkeley Fire Department chief, and they were going to landfill 1,000 feet of hose, and they just gave it to us. My half burned up when our house burned down in the Valley Fire. My dad's half is in the garage, but we have discovered, or I've discovered, when I was using it a few weeks ago, and it was drilling a giant divot in the driveway. There's a hole in that. So hoses don't last forever. But there's a really good deal in Middletown. The Women's Auxiliary Fire Sirens Thrift Shop next to the fire department sells hoses every July. They're mandated to rotate out hoses. And instead of $200, I got a 100-foot hose for $50, and I got a 50-foot hose for $20. And so we're gradually replenishing and modernizing our supply. Now, we have two sides to our house. Well, actually 4 sides. We have what I call the south and west side and the north and east side, where a person could make a good stand. If I'm alone, I can't do both. And also I had the pump, I had the 100-foot hoses hooked up in such a way that if I were satisfied with what's going on at the north side of the hill, but I had to do the south, I would have to run back, turn off the pump, unscrew the hose, screw the other one on. So I looked online for what's called a Y valve, and I don't know whether you put a close up of this Y valve. It's very heavy. And it's a ball valve. I don't know whether you can get in there, but you can see that when you turn it, when you open it, the ball shuts it or opens it.
Yeah.
So I have a 50-foot hose coming out from the pump to a strategic place near the house. I screw this female connector on that, and then I can keep these open or closed as needed. And so one of them governs the hose going to the south and west side of the house, the other to the north and east. And then I have a valve on each one, a nozzle. I have this plastic nozzle, which I used to keep the house wetted in case the rainbow fire got there. And then last year I got this through the fire siren sale. It's a professional nozzle that allows you to do 60, 30, 60, 95, or 125 gallons a minute. Several firefighters said on Cobb Rising that they probably use this in the course of their service. It's got an honorable service, and you've also got a bail. So you can set it to what you want and then turn it on or off with the bail. The difficulty, and I think you ran into this, I think Carol was using this. This is really heavy. Is this the one you use? Why don't you pass it around?
Oh,
And then why don't
there's
you,
no way I could.
and then why don't you pass the plastic one around? The metal one is what professional firefighters use, of course, and they hold it on their shoulder.
And they train for each one.
They train. But I actually, the other day, I was emptying our cistern, and I ended up using the plastic one. The plastic one is so easy and intuitive. The problem with the plastic is that you have to go from wide open through the jet to off. But Michael, our son, says that all we need to do is get a separate bail so that we can set this to what we want and then turn it on or off. So anyway, you could have one person on one side of the house and the other on the other, and you could have both of these on if you need, both sides of the Y valve, or only one as needed. And one person could do that too, because you don't have to turn the pump off. So if I happen to be alone, it would be easy to turn it off and go down to the other one. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the rational approach to when to fight a fire too, because a lot of people are making the assumption that anybody can stop a fire with a garden hose. Garden hoses generally don't work. Lots of people die, and they put CAL FIRE personnel at risk when they try to stick around and use a garden hose. For one thing, electricity is likely to go off and you'll have no power for your garden hose. But the other thing, it doesn't put out nearly as much as a pump that puts out 100 gallons a minute. Now, what I've always thought is that it's reasonable to imagine to defend your house from an early morning or a late evening fire. It's not reasonable to defend it in front of a wall of flame coming in front of a 50-mile-an-hour wind at 2 o'clock on a hot afternoon. The question is how to make the judicious executive decision that this is the fire I can fight without endangering other people who might come to save me, or this is the fire I just have to give up on. And that's a crapshoot, and it's something I'm not entirely happy with in terms of knowing how to decide. And now that we have a son in CAL FIRE, he would be able to help us make that decision.